We recently spent an incredible 3 weeks in Sri Lanka and we absolutely fell in love with the people, the food, the culture, everything about the country. And today we're going to be sharing with you guys some essential tips that you need to know before you travel to Sri Lanka.
What's up guys, and welcome to 2020. This is actually the first video that we are filming of this year. Also, we are sitting on the floor. The weather today is crazy. Every room we tried to film in thus far has been so dark except for this room, and we are just sitting on the floor and, you know.
So guys, welcome to our bedroom.
If this is your first time clicking on one of our videos, hi, hello, I'm Sally.
And I'm Ed, and we make travel content here on YouTube every single week, so make sure you subscribe, hit that notification so you do not miss out on any of this travel business.
Today we are going to be sharing some essential things that you need to know before traveling to Sri Lanka. So, let's jump into it! When you fly into Sri Lanka, you will be arriving into the Colombo International Airport. And one of the essential things you need to know about flying into the Colombo International Airport is it's actually in Negombo and not in Colombo, which is a little bit confusing, but it's actually about 30 kilometers outside of the city. So how do you get from the airport in Negombo to Colombo City? Well, you have three main options. Now the first is a public bus, which is of course the cheapest, but this is gonna be the longest and not necessarily the most comfortable way. Now the second option is to get a minibus, which is a slightly more expensive and slightly more comfortable way to get from the airport to the city. Third option is to either get a taxi or organize a driver to come and get you from your hotel or your accommodation, which is what we did. This, of course, is gonna be the most expensive option, but it means that somebody's gonna be waiting for you at the airport and you know you're gonna get from the airport straight to your accommodation. And after a long flight, there is nothing worse than getting a bus, getting dropped somewhere, not knowing where you are, trying to find your accommodation. It's late at night, it's a foreign country, you don't know what's going on. If you don't mind spending a little bit more money, definitely getting a taxi or hiring a driver is gonna be the most convenient way to go. Another essential thing that you need to remember when traveling to Sri Lanka is that you might need a visa. Now, at the time that Ed and I actually traveled to Sri Lanka had waived the visa fees. They were trying to encourage more tourists to come to the country. Now, I know that was only going for a 6-month period, so it's probably best to check on the Sri Lankan government website if you need a visa and if you do need to pay for it. So we'll link it down below for you. It is called an ETA and you can actually apply for it online, which will save you so much time and hassle at the airport.
Now let's just talk about the logistics of actually traveling to Sri Lanka. For a very small country, the travel days can be surprisingly long. There are three main ways that you're going to be getting around the country. Firstly, by buses, secondly, by trains, and thirdly, by hiring your own private driver. If you're looking for the cheapest way to get around the country, buses are by far your best option. But be prepared for many long and winding roads and many extra long journeys, because the buses in Sri Lanka, they actually service the local people. So they don't always go the most direct route from A to B. So if you're in Colombo heading to Sigiriya, the bus is actually going to go all around the world before it actually takes you there because it's servicing the local people. Your second option of getting around Sri Lanka is actually by train. Now the train network in Sri Lanka is pretty well connected, but it doesn't go everywhere. If you're traveling the Cultural Triangle, then you can probably get around by train. But what you'll find is the tickets sell out incredibly fast. When we were traveling Sri Lanka, you could only really get your tickets at the train station or through your guest house. There was no online booking service. We did get quite a few tips from locals when we were in Sri Lanka about the best way to get your train tickets. We were told that if you go to Colombo Fort Station, you can actually buy all of your tickets in advance. However, if you don't have like a set itinerary, you're probably gonna have to buy your tickets at the station on the day you depart. But by far the best piece of advice we got for traveling by train in Sri Lanka was for the Kandy to LLA. If you haven't heard of this train, go look it up. It's one of the most scenic train routes in the world. Because the Kandy to Ella train route is so beautiful, it is possibly the busiest leg on the entire train route. So to make sure you get your tickets, don't go to Kandy main station. There's a station called Peradeniya station, which is on the same line as Kandy to Ella. It's just the station before. So you can actually go to Peradeniya. It's nowhere near as busy. You jump on the train and then you get a seat when everyone gets off at Kandy. It's a pro tip for you.
I just had to switch it up and sit in this chair because it is amazing. I feel like I am like a queen sitting on my throne. Is this what the, what's that throne from that show that everyone loved, Game of Thrones? What's that throne called? The ice throne, the queen's throne?
The Iron Throne.
The one with the swords. The Iron Throne! Thank you, Edwin. So the third way that you can get around Sri Lanka, and this is probably the most convenient way out of all three, is to actually hire a private driver. there are two ways that this can work. You can either hire a driver who will be your driver for the entire time that you're in Sri Lanka, and he will basically work out an itinerary that works best for you, and basically you can go wherever you want within reason. The second way that it works is you can hire a driver from point to point. Now this is a far more affordable way to hire a driver. When Ed and I traveled from Negombo to Sigiriya, it would have taken us about 9 hours on a bus, so we just opted to hire a driver to take us from Negombo to Sigiriya, point to point, which for the 5-hour journey cost us about $30. Which, you know, to save us 9 hours and get there in half the time, we thought was pretty worth it. How much does hiring a driver actually cost? Well, at the lower end, you're looking at around $45 US per day, and that's for like a pretty basic Toyota, you know, basic kind of car. But if you're wanting something a little bit more luxurious to drive you around, then you're looking more at like $80 to $90 US per day. But that doesn't actually include the fact that you need to factor in accommodation and food for your driver for the entire time that they're with you. Of course, they do need to eat and sleep as well, just like you. Hopefully, guys, that gives you a little bit of info on how to actually travel around Sri Lanka. All right, moving on to budget.
Sri Lanka is a very affordable country to travel, and you can easily get by on around $40 a day if you're eating simple meals, staying in local guest houses, and catching public transport. Or you can spend upwards of $200 a day if you're hiring a private driver and staying in 4 to 5-star hotels and eating in Western places. It really just depends on your level of comfort. But to break down some day-to-day costs for you, meals can start as low as $2 if you're eating in a local restaurant, and be upwards of $10 to $15 if you're eating in Western style places. The cost of a local beer is around $4. So just know that if you are planning on drinking alcohol, the cost of your meals will probably double or triple. And of course, the local currency in Sri Lanka is Sri Lankan rupees, and it is definitely best to get your cash out in a major city. When we were in Sigiriya, we really struggled to find an ATM with any cash left in it. Because there's a limited number of ATMs and quite a lot of people, you'll find that a lot of the ATMs are either out of order or don't have any cash left. We drove around for about half a day trying to find an ATM just so we could pay for our accommodation. So make sure you have plenty of cash so you don't end up stranded and hungry like we did.
Next up, let's talk about safety. So is Sri Lanka safe? Yes. At no point did we feel unsafe at all, really, except maybe when we were in the Horton Plains and I heard a leopard making its mating call, and I thought, what are we gonna do if a leopard comes? What do you do? What do you do if a leopard like appears and you're hiking?
I'm fairly certain we just heard the leopard's mating call. I could be wrong and I could be hearing things, but we heard it when we were in Nepal and it sounded very similar. But it seemed far away, so I think we're still safe.
I was like genuinely really scared. But anyways, no, Sri Lanka is an incredibly safe country. Whenever you are traveling anywhere, not just in Sri Lanka, it is important to take care of your personal safety, so don't flash around your money and your iPhone and your fancy cameras, because that really is making yourself a target for theft. You know, if you're gonna be catching public transport, maybe just don't leave all of your expensive stuff in a bag that you're not gonna supervise. It is pretty easy to get on and off the trains. This didn't happen to us, but we have heard that people have lost things and have had things stolen on trains because they've put their luggage up, forgotten about it, gone off on the train, hung out the window, had a dance with a family, and then come back and their stuff is gone. I'm having a party on a train! You know, just keep an eye on your stuff and don't be flashing around your stuff, because then you're just asking to be robbed. When we were in Sigiriya, there was actually this road and we got told you can't go in a tuk-tuk at certain times of the day, like in the afternoon, because elephants cross this road. Like, elephants actually cross this main road. Can you imagine an elephant on the road? Like, an elephant, imagine where you live, right? A main road near where you live, and out of nowhere, bam, an elephant is just like crossing the road. That would be terrifying, and also you would be like gobsmacked. I would, honestly, I wouldn't have known how to react if that happened to us. I think I would have been amazed, and then terrified, and then amazed, and then terrified, and then amazed, all at once. We didn't encounter any wild elephants on the road, but we have heard of these things happening and accidents happening because of elephants on the road, charging cars, flipping over tuk-tuks, attacking people on bikes. So I guess something to keep in mind is that there are elephants, wild elephants, that roam around and cross the roads, and if you see a wild elephant, don't get too close to it, because they are actually quite dangerous. Other than the elephants though, I would say Sri Lanka is very safe. The people are very friendly, they're very welcoming, and for the most part, they're pretty excited and happy to see tourists here in their country. It's doing a lot for their economy, and they really just want you to have the best time.
Finally, let's talk about planning your itinerary. So, what is it that you want to see? Where do you want to go? Are you into animals or hiking or food? That will really dictate the kind of trip that you have.
Another key factor that is going to dictate what you do in Sri Lanka is the time of year you visit. Sri Lanka is a tropical country that experiences the monsoon at different times throughout the entire country. So for example, when the eastern side is in monsoon season, the western side is dry, and vice versa. Depending on what time of year you're going to visit, that's really going to dictate where you go. You don't really want to go to the southern beaches in the middle of monsoon season because you're not going to be able to go to the beach at all, ever, and it's going to rain every day, and you're going to have a horrible time.
We were traveling Sri Lanka in September, and we mainly stuck to the center of the country, which is like the cultural triangle. It's a pretty cool spot. You've got Kandy, you've got Ely, you've got Nurelia, Sigiriya. There's plenty to do. I guess the one piece of advice I would give to anybody planning their trip to Sri Lanka is that travel days can be quite long. If you've only got 10 to 14 days to see Sri Lanka, I think you're better off going to fewer places but spending more time and really immersing yourself in more of the country.
Less is more when it comes to traveling in Sri Lanka, and if you only have 2 weeks, don't try to fit in everything because I think you will struggle and you'll be exhausted. But hopefully now we've covered some of the essential things that you need to know before traveling to Sri Lanka. Maybe we've answered some of your questions about it. If you did have any questions, leave them in the comments down below because we'll try to help you out if we know the answer. Can't guarantee, but we'll try to help you out.
See you guys in the next video.